I'm Renee Encinias, and I am the Program Director and License Administrator for Hope Rising. I've been in child welfare for over 20 years. I actually started in a job where I thought I'd be for about a year and wanted to be a probation officer, but very quickly realized this is the work I was supposed to be doing. And so there at that first facility, I was a house parent, I was a case manager, I was director of training, did just a little bit of everything, crisis intervention. And then I moved to Austin and continued my work at a different child placing agency, and again continued through doing case management, through supervising, intake, all of those things. And then I came to Hope Rising in February of 2018, where I realized that the one new challenge for me was going to be working with the trafficking population. Although I did quickly realize that there are many kids that I've worked with in the past that had been trafficked, we just didn't have that name for it. We knew children had been sexually abused, but we didn't have the language around what trafficking was. What I quickly realized in working with Hope Rising, that if I had been in this field for all of this time and was unaware of trafficking and the prevalence of trafficking, then your everyday person, your everyday parent is certainly unaware, and that we really need to get the word out. We need to get some prevention, some awareness, all of those tools into the hands of all the parents of all the children. We focus on foster children, but all the children are at risk when we talk about trafficking. Since being with Hope Rising, I've realized how different the needs are of the children who have been trafficked. When you work with children in foster care, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of extra care that they need. When you add the layer of trafficking, there's a whole new process for it. These children have been through so much, and there's so much complex trauma that we have to really hone in on what their needs are. We at Hope Rising have a wonderful team of people who do just that. We have a founder who's been doing trafficking work for many years. We have myself who's been doing foster care for many years. We have a fantastic therapist who has been working specifically with the trafficking population for about a decade. And so whenever something needs to occur, whether it's specific to that child's placement or their therapy or equine therapy, we can all come together and have really great discussions about what their needs are, what we can provide, and where we go from here. Another level that we have in our staff is that we have survivors on our team. And the reason that helps is they have a very different perspective than the rest of us, because they've been in the shoes of the people that we're trying to take care of. And they can offer some suggestions, some ideas, some, hey, don't do that we might not think of. The assessment center is an important piece of what we do. It's a piece that's missing at this time. Currently, when we receive a call that a child needs placement, whether that's from CPS or whether it's an advocacy group or law enforcement or even a parent, we have the option of a foster home. In some cases, that's a really great option, but we have children who have been either in care for a really long time and have not got the treatment they need for the trafficking specifically, or maybe they're brand new to care, freshly rescued from their situation, and no one's really sure what they need yet. And the purpose of the Emergency Assessment Center is to be able to figure out what those needs are. So we plan to have them in the assessment center for 30, 60, or 90 days, where we can do assessments around their medical needs, their behavioral needs, their psychological needs, all of those things, so that whenever we do find at the next placement for them, it is the best placement. So they don't bounce around from one spot to another, but rather very early on find where they need to go that can help them the best. In the assessment center, we'll have the opportunity to get to know the children, to get to know what their needs are, to get to know what their trauma is, to see what their interests are, because it's very important in their healing that we meet all of those needs, that we work on the therapy piece, that we work on meeting their basic needs, but also find what's going to interest them, so that we don't place a child who really loves animals and really wants to be out in the country in the middle of urban Austin. And those sorts of things we can do in an assessment center in a way we can't in a foster home. In a foster home, when we place that child that's still not stable, that still needs a lot of assessment, we can be very disruptive to the home, to the parents, to the children already placed there. And sometimes it's too much freedom for that child who hasn't gotten any healing yet, who's still needing to figure out where they want to go and what they want to do. They don't always realize that they're in a better place, that they're in a safer place, until they've been there long enough to build relationships, build trust, and accept the help that we're offering. One of the most important things for children in care is feeling safe. Historically in foster care, everyone believed that once you take the child out of the environment they're in that's unsafe, that's dangerous, and place them in foster care, everything's fine. They're safe now. But what we've realized with trauma-informed care is that they don't necessarily know they're safe. It's not enough for the adults to know they're safe. The child has to actually feel safe. The way that we do that currently in our foster homes is through building those relationships, which is also what we want to do in the assessment center. We're going to meet some basic needs like making sure they have a meal every single time they're supposed to, that there's snacks available when they're hungry, that someone's always there to offer them water, that sort of thing. But then also we're going to build those relationships. We're going to make sure they understand how important they are to us, because they haven't had that in an honest, genuine way before. They've had people build relationships that wanted something from them. Instead, we're going to offer that unconditional love, that unconditional relationship, that when they're having a hard moment, when they're having some behavioral issues, that love, that care is not going to change. We're not going to meet them where they are with the same kind of frustration and anger and verbal aggression or whatever it's coming out as. Instead, we're going to be patient, we're going to be calm, we're going to be quiet when we need to, and we're going to help them get to where they need to be. Probably one of the most rewarding parts of my job is watching the change in the children that we're serving. We have many children who come to us in a place of distrust of anyone. They don't really interact very well or at all in some cases, or when they do, they may have that wall up. They may be wearing this armor of who they've had to be to protect themselves in the past. So to be able to watch a child go from that to a child who has light in their eyes, who has developed relationships not only with their caregivers and our staff and their foster parents, but also with God in a way that they've never had before, has been amazing.